Hey guys, this is MusicTechHelpGuy, and welcome to part 20 of my pop rock mixing series in Logic Pro 10. In this video, we're going to create a cool cut-up vocal intro at the beginning of the song using the pitch correction plugin as well as the vocal transformer plugin. So for this project, we're actually going to start from scratch in a new Logic project, then bounce out our intro and import it into our mix session. This is more or less just for organizational reasons. Once you get up above 50 tracks like we have in this session, things can get a little cluttered. In order to complete this part of the project, there's a few sample files you'll need, so I'll make sure to include a free download link in the video description below. The first sample is just an excerpt from the chorus of the song with some of the EQ tamed down a bit and no time-based effects.
We're just so magical, this tragedy keeps running through my heart.
The second is just a reference track of the intro from the fully mixed song. The third sample is a swell effect I created for the original mix with the Valhalla Shimmer plugin. I'm just including the sample here because there's really no easy way to recreate this swell effect with Logic's stock plugins alone. And the last sample is a warped sample of the vocals, which I did with Stutter Edit from iZotope. So again, this would be incredibly difficult to recreate with Logic stock plugins. So I've just chosen to include the sample. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so I've got a new session pulled up here. One thing you may want to do is go up to File, Project Settings, and then go to Audio. And what you can do from here is you can change the sample rate of your session. So before you start dragging in things, you can change this from 44.1, which is the standard starting sample rate for sessions, up to 48. And the reason why we want to make our intro 48K is because the sample rate of our mix session is also 48K, so we want those two to match. Now, if you the only reason I'm not doing this live on screen is because when I switch from 44 to 48 live, it messes up my video capture feed, so I just figured I would start the feed at 48. Now, if you don't do it that way, when you start dragging in your samples over here, what it'll do is it'll ask you if you want to change the project's sample rate to match the file. You do want to do that. You can say change project sample rate. So let's start dragging in our samples here. I'm just going to drag in my first one right up here. It's going to ask us, do we want to import tempo information? Yes, we want to do that because the original session was 180 BPM and Logic starts at 120. However, we do not want to import our markers, so I'll say don't import. And you can see it's automatically changed our tempo to 180 up here, so that's good. I'm going to pull in my reference track. You just drag it below the lowest track. It'll automatically create a new track for it. We'll do the same for the intro swell. And we'll do the same for the little vocal slowdown. So there we go. So let me just zoom in a bit here. One other thing I want to do is hit X, check my mixer. So I want to make sure all of my tracks are in stereo, which they are, so we're good there. All right, so let's start with the intro swell here. It looks like in the original, the tail end of the swell sort of ends at bar 4 here, where the keys and guitar sort of come in. So it looks like this one actually is about a bar too late. So what I'm going to do is go up to my snap menu up here, make sure that's turned on, change this to bar, and we're just going to cut out the very first bar here. We're going to pull this back. And let's see if, let me pull the reference track volume down, and let's see if those match up okay. Yeah, there we go. It's pretty good. So that's just the intro swell. We'll worry about pulling up volume and stuff later. Let's just actually, get everything down. At the very end, there's that little vocal slowdown, so we can put that in place. It's like right here. And I believe this needs to go around measure 10. Good, so that's in the right place now. So now let's actually focus on the actually the cut up vocal idea. So here's our vocal sample here. It's just when she says the word magical. So let's find that one spot.
We're just so magical.
Right there, so measure 3. I'm going to use my snap mode on division, and I'm going to use my marquee tool, and I'm just going to cut out that one little phrase, magical. Just drag over it and click. to separate it. And delete the ends. And what we've got now is just a little clip that just says magical.
Magical.
So what we're going to do is, one thing I'm going to do real quick though, is I don't want it to sound kind of cut off like that
Magical.
at the front end. So I'm going to turn off my snap temporarily. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here and pull forward the front end of this clip a little bit. And just add a little bit of a fade on the front end of it. That's going to get rid of the how chopped off it sounds. But by the way, if you want to create a fade with your Portal tool, you just hold Shift Control and drag over the end there. We'll do the end for the same for the end of the clip as well. We'll just do a little fade there. So I'm going to drag over that. I'm going to click right here. It's going to pull down my extra toolbar. I'm going to hit my set locators over here so I can set the loop around the clip.
Magical. Magical.
Cool. So that sounds good to me. All right. So from here on out, we're going to work in probably beat mode up here. But we need to make sure that we have the snap to relative value on, because when we drag this clip around, we've got that little extra right in front of the beat. So when I drag this over to another beat, I want to maintain that little extra before the beat. All right, so the first instance of this word magical comes in right here at measure 4, and you'll hear that it sort of pans from the left to the right. So let's just listen to that real quick. So let's move our clip here over to bar 4.
Magical.
So right now it basically just sounds, you know, like a dry vocal sample without like the auto-tune sound and without the panning. So let's fix that, and then we'll start working with this some more. So I'm going to click on the track. We're going to add the pitch correction plugin. And we're going to make this sort of have that auto-tune sound. So I'm going to keep it on normal. I'm going to pull the response time all the way down. And I believe the notes that are being used are C, B flat, and G. So let's get rid of everything except for C, B flat, or A sharp, and G.
Magical.
Let's just listen to that. Let me just loop that out there.
Magical. 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 Magical.
Yeah, that sounds right. I was just trying out a few other notes just to see if they sounded better, but no, that's pretty much it. So just A sharp, G, and C. Pull the response time all the way down. Keep it on the normal range. So we've got our little tuned clip there. What we're gonna do now is we are going to basically duplicate this track twice, and because as you could hear in the original, the first part of the word's left, the second part of the word is center, and the third part of the word is right. We're gonna emulate that. So I'm just gonna name my first track vocal left, vocal center, vocal right. And what I'm gonna do is just use my scissors tool. I'm gonna turn off my snap mode. We're just gonna cut this right there and right there. So we're just cutting up the word. So this can come straight down. By the way, if you hold Shift while you pull it down, it will attempt sometimes if you don't move it too far. If you hold Shift, there you go, it'll snap it right in place. And then I'm just gonna sort of fade these a little bit, just so there's no popping sounds in there. There we go. Let's see what that sounds like.
Magical.
Right, so it's not panned yet. So let's pan these out. Let's take these 3 tracks. Let's pull the left one far left, the right one far right, and keep the center one center. So let's listen to what that sounds like now.
Magical.
Cool. So the word magical comes in on a few, like the full word comes in on like I think 4 different points.
Magical.
Yeah, measure 6, 8, and 10. So what we're gonna do is to turn our snap mode back on. We can stay on beat, it'll be safe. And we're just gonna drag over all of these, hold Option, and pull them over to measure 6. Again, holding Option, measure 8, and measure 10. So we've got our main full word there on all 4 instances of it.
Magical. 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 Magical.
So the only thing we really need to do now is those little cut up parts of the front end of the word magical, the ma of magical. So let's listen in for those. Let's go back to bar 4 here.
Magical.
So there's 2 of them here on 4.4 and 5. So let's listen to it and let's see what channel it's in, because we have to kind of figure out whether it's left, center, or right. So it looks like left, right. So I'm going to pull this one over. Again, holding Option, I'm going to pull this one down to the right channel. So now I have...
Magical.
Now we haven't created all those little pitchy chipmunky effects yet, which we'll get to that. I'm just trying to get everything in place at this point. So it looks like 5.3 and 5.4, we've got them as well. Let's just listen for the channels. Sounds like left and then center this time. So let's pull that one over there. Pull that one there.
Magical. Magical.
So there's a bunch of them over here. Yeah, basically on 4th beat of 8, 9, 2nd beat of 9, 3rd beat of 9. So there's one for each beat here. There's 4 of them. Let's listen for the channels now. Sounds like left, right to me. So let's try that. Left, right, left, right.
Magical. Magical.
And then that last, warped one is down here. We'll go ahead and pull that thing in too. All right, so the way... this is the way I'm literally just planting the notes where they need to go, and we're sort of, like I said, we're tuning them up with the pitch correction plugin. But you'll notice on some of the notes, there's like a little bit of frogginess in her voice or chipmunkiness in her voice that we want to play around with. Like this one right here is kind of up a little bit, sounds a little more chipmunky. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to use a plugin called the Vocal Transformer, and it's under Pitch and then on Vocal Transformer. Now, we could go crazy and we could create separate tracks just for the ones that are affected by the Vocal Transformer, and then make separate tracks for the ones that aren't. But I'm going to do it just with these 3 tracks by automating up and down parameters of the Vocal Transformer. So we're going to be working mostly with this formant knob, but on one particular occasion we'll be working with the pitch knob. So to me, this little note here sounds like it's got the formants up. And by the way, if you don't know what formants are, they're essentially the meaningful overtones in the human vocal tract that make the voice sound like a voice. So when you pull formants up, you're not pulling up or down the pitch of the note, you're pulling up or down sort of the overtone series on the fundamental of the note. If you pull it up, it's going to sound more like a chipmunk. If you pull it down, it's going to sound more masculine, more deep sounding. So in this instance, it sounded like she was sort of shifted up a bit. So here's the original again. And here's what the format pulled up, say, +7. And that's pretty close to, I think, what we had going on in the original. Yeah, let me solo the ref track. It's a bit more filtered, but yeah, it's there. All right, so here's the thing. I only want this +7 format adjustment to be on this one sample. I don't want it to be on the entire track. So what we're going to do is we're going to use automation to automate the format knob up and down to adjust for each note that we want it to be on. So I'm going to hit A to pull up automation. I am going to use track automation. I know some people will ask why not use region automation, but I literally just tried it and it didn't work out right for this plugin. So we're going to stay with track automation. We're going to change the automation parameter from volume to the vocal transformer, and then we're going to choose the formant option. So right now we're at 0, so let's just create a little breakpoint envelope in here. We can use the marquee tool to just drag over this clip, click, and then pull up. So go up to +7. So the first note starts at 0, this one's at 7.
Go back. Go back.
So there you go. So we're going to do the same thing for this top track. We're going to add our vocal transformer. And this one's only sounds like it's going up just a little bit. So let's change the automation parameter over to format. Let's click, pull it up, maybe like +2. So let's see what this sounds like now with just these 3 tracks in here. All right, so let's go over here and let's see what these sound like in the reference track. This one sounds like it's up a little bit more. This one sounds the same as this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and just pull this +2 over here. There we go. And then pull it back down to 0 there. This one seems like it goes up a little bit more. So let's throw the vocal transformer in there as well. And this one goes up probably like, it sounds like it's about 3 or 4. Let's use our marquee tool, click, pull this up, and there we go. So let's see what this whole first phrase sounds like now. Without the ref track in. Yeah, this note here seems like, I think in the original it was actually panned slightly to the right, but not all the way to the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a little pan automation in here as well. So I'm just going to select pan and pull this over to the right just to separate it a little bit from this one, because it seems like it's not quite separated enough. So not hard pan, but pretty far over. There we go. All right, so let's move over to the next set of notes here. Let's listen to the ref track. The second repetition is very similar to the first repetition. So this one's probably +7 again, so we'll do that. This one's probably like up 2 again. And this one's probably up, I don't know, I would say probably like, it's up a little bit, but it's not up a whole lot, maybe like +2 or something. Now this one's the weird one right here. Let's just give this part a listen here. This note, yeah, this one's, it sounds like the formant's up, but it also sounds like the pitch is up an octave. So in the vocal transformer, in addition to be able to adjust your formants, you can adjust the transposition in pitch here. So what we're going to do is we're going to also show the fine pitch. Actually, I think it's just the regular pitch. Yeah, this one right here, the pitch. And what this is going to do is it's going to let us adjust it up or down in any number of semitones. So this one note, we're going to bump up a full octave, which is 12 semitones. So let's listen to this with that in. Yeah, it sounds a little weird. Let's try pulling the format up on it as well. So let's listen to all of this together now without the ref track in. One thing that's kind of irking me is how hard the front ends of these clips are. They seem to just hit really hard. So what I'm going to do is I'm put a bit of a fade on the front end of each one of these clips. You can just drag over all of them, go up to your region parameters up here, and it says 20 clips selected. Click on more, and then you can adjust the, you can sort of batch fade them. So let's make our batch fade in, let's make it 80 milliseconds. So just double click and you type in 80 hit enter. And what it'll do is it'll put an 80 millisecond fade on all of those. Actually, that might look like a little bit too much. Let's try a 40 millisecond fade. Yeah, probably still too much. Let's do like 25. And the only ones that sound weird to me are the G's from the J of magical. So I'm going to drag over those. I'm going to set those to like, 12, like a little shorter fade. There we go. Yeah, this top one right here doesn't really sound right. Yeah, I think we may need to, let's see, pull the format up even more. It just doesn't sound like it's going, it's like it's moving fast enough. I wonder if I need to try putting that one on a separate track. I may just have to put that one on a different track. So I'll just do Vox L up octave or something like that. Let's pull this down. Whoops. Make sure I hold shift while I do so. There we go. And let's just delete all the automation from this track for now. So just go up to Mix, Delete Automation. You say Delete all automation on selected track. There we go. So for this one, let's set this to that. Yeah, it sounds better now, and I think part of it is the vocal transformer, like a lot of pitch plugins, takes a lot of processing power, and sometimes there's a bit of like a delay on it. And I think that having the automation shift real quickly right before it was not exactly being helpful. We'll just say that. So literally just jumping it over to its own track actually kind of helped it to process faster. So yeah, let's listen to this one more time, and then we'll start adding some effects to it. Cool. So let's pull the intro swell in here. All right, cool. By the way, the keyboard we're going to add in the mix section, the mix session, so we'll do that later. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all these vocals, and I'm going to send them to a bus. So I'm going to take the stereo out. Let's go to bus 1. I'm just going to call this glitched vocals or something. All right, so one of the things we need to do with this is we need to create sort of like a filtered out sound. And I used a different plugin when I did the original to sort of make these sound like they're being played through like a cheap speaker or something like that. The only plugin I can really think of that comes with Logic that can actually emulate like a cheap speaker like that is, believe it or not, is Space Designer. We think of Space Designers as a reverb plugin, but what you can do is under warped effects here, there's a few speaker emulations, which are actually pretty cool. So let's try some of these like mini ones. Let's try Tiny Phone and see what that sounds like. I like it, but I want to have a little bit more dry signal in there. All right, let's also add some pretty heavy reverb to everything that's in here, including the other two effects that we had in. So let's throw these on an aux track as well. So I'm gonna create a bus send, pull up the send amount quite a bit. All right, so on our reverb aux track here, what we're going to do is we're going to put some more reverb. We're going to use the platinum verb again, like we did in the mix session in the previous video. And we'll use that same preset we had before, bright long verb. We'll pull up the spread a little bit, pull up the room size a bit, quite a bit actually, pull up the reverb time a bit, and the wet signal should be at 100%. So let's see what this sounds like. Let's see what all this sounds like from the beginning with the effects in and everything. Yeah, so I pulled down just the overall level of the glitchy vocals. I'll actually pull down the track level a bit too. And I pulled down the reverb a bit because the reverb is just a little bit heavy. All right, just one more time for me. I just want to make sure that this intro swell is loud enough. I'm going to click on it, go up to the gain option in the region parameters, and pull this up a bit. So I think it's just a touch quiet. There we go. Let's give that a shot. Cool. Now this may seem a little crazy, but what I'm going to do is add another instance of the pitch correction plugin directly on the vocal aux track before the Space Designer plugin, just to add one additional level of tuning to it. And I'm just going to set it up the same way I did before, with just G, A sharp, and C on. Another thing I'm going to do is duplicate and drag the intro swell up to measure 9. The swell actually happens twice in the intro sequence, so I want to make sure I get that in there. So let's give this whole thing a listen. Yeah, as we tail into the song, there's another one of those. And there's actually a reverse cymbal in there too, but we're going to add that in the mix session. So here's what I'm going to do. To be safe, I'm going to bounce all this as one stereo file and this as another stereo file, just to be safe so I can adjust the level of the swell later. So the way we're going to do that is just drag over all this with the cycle the locators, the cycle mode. And then we're just going to mute the intro swell. Mute, not solo. There we go. And then what we're going to do is just bounce all this. So I'm just going to hit Command B to bounce. Bounce is a PCM wave file. Make sure it's 24-bit 48 with no normalization. We'll turn that off. We'll hit OK. And I'm just going to bounce it to my my desktop for now, and I'll just call this cut vocal intro. Bounce that out. And then I'm going to mute all of the vocals and just unmute the swells. And we'll bounce that out separately. We'll call this intro swells. There we go. So what I'll do is off screen, I'll meet you back at the mix session. I'll open up the original mix session. I'll drag the two bounced files into the session, and then we'll sort of place them correctly within the session. All right, so we're back. So I've got two stereo audio tracks created, and I imported our two bounced files, the cut up vocals on one, and then the swells on the other. But the problem is that our original session doesn't start with enough lead time to actually have an intro. If you listen to it, which sounds cool, but that's not the way the intro goes. So what we need to do is we need to create some extra bars. There's a couple different ways to do this, but I find that if I've already got a session out here and there's a bunch of stuff going on, what I'll typically do is I'll just drag on this little guy right here, the start marker. And what it'll do, just drag left, is it'll create additional measures before your measures. So you've got measure 1, but then we've got measure 0 and -1 going all the way back. Now, the original song, the swell comes in, and once the first magical hits, that's where the guitar and keyboard come in. Now, in the mix session, the guitar and keyboard only come in for 4 bars, and then the guitars hit. So what we've got to do is we've also got to double up the intro time of the keys and the clean guitar. So with bar mode on up here, I'm going to drag over 4 measures of the guitar and keys, click on it to separate it, and basically hold Option and drag this over, just like so. We'll come back and we'll do some, well, let's do the edits now, we might as well. So I'll just go to turn off my snap mode, and we're gonna drag this over a bit, because I want this to sound like a clean edit, just like so. Now I've got X fade on, which is why it's automatically crossfading. So let's drag over these ends and pull these back, just like so. There we go. And then over here where we cut it, we don't really technically need to put a fade, because it's that's where we cut it. But just for my own OCD, we'll go ahead and adjust that as well. So there we go. So now our key intro comes in a little bit sooner. It comes in 4 bars sooner. So basically right here at measure -3, it's weird to think about it that way, but measure -3, that's where the very first magical needs to come in. So let's go back up here. And so basically what's at measure 4 now needs to be at measure 3. So it looks like we've got 3 bars before that first magical. So we've actually got to create some more space. We've got to create 3 more bars of space before measure -3 here. So let's pull this back even further. And it only lets you go so far, but let's pull it back to about there. Go back to bar mode. Let's pull these over. Cool. The intros are a little loud, and the guitar and keyboard are a little quiet, but we've basically got the idea in. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the reverse cymbal effect that we created over here for one of the transitions, and we're going to layer this up at one point. So again, making sure that we're in bar mode and snapping to relative value. I'm going to pull this over. I'm going to hold Option and drag this over. And right where the guitars hit, which is measure 5, no, measure, I think it's measure 5. Yeah, measure 5. We're going to have this swell lead right up into that. Just like so. So that little reverse cymbal swell is going to be layered with this swell up here. So let's see what that sounds like. Let's try to pull the swell down just a little bit. All right, so there you go. Some of the levels aren't quite right, but we'll address that in the next video. But we've basically got our intro in place. It's where it needs to be. The reverb does sound a bit different than in the iTunes mix, and that's just because I used a different third-party reverb plugin on that one. So again, the goal here is not to make this mix identical to the iTunes version, but to get it close enough using all stock plugins in Logic. So we're getting there. So there's only 2 videos left in this series. In the next video, I'll make up a whole list of mix revisions I want to make, and we'll make those and wrap up the mix. And in the last video, we'll move on to mastering. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.